Nothing was wrong with your relationship. Your girlfriend wasn't abusive. Your boyfriend wasn't cold. Your partner didn't cheat, disappear, or explode. There were no big fights, no dramatic arguments, no obvious reason to leave. That's exactly why it ended. You were getting along. You were communicating. You were being healthy. You answered messages on time. You talked things through. You adjusted when something felt off. When your partner seemed distant, you didn't challenge it. You smoothed it. You explained yourself when no one asked. You reassured when reassurance wasn't requested. You softened your tone to keep things calm. You called this maturity. You called this love. You told yourself this is how stable relationships work. But attraction doesn't collapse from conflict. It dissolves in comfort. The moment the relationship stopped generating tension, it stopped requiring attraction to stay alive. Your partner didn't lose feelings overnight. They didn't wake up different. They slowly felt less pulled, not because something went wrong, but because nothing did. No friction, no pressure, no edge. Just smooth days, clear conversations, and behavior that adapted too easily. Attraction doesn't leave when things break. It leaves when everything works without needing it. You didn't lose them because you failed. You lost them because the relationship became too safe to feel alive. At first, everything felt right. You weren't fighting. You weren't anxious. You weren't guessing where you stood. The relationship felt stable. You talked things through instead of letting them sit. You clarified instead of assuming. You chose understanding over tension. From the outside, it looked ideal. From the inside, something subtle changed. The relationship stopped producing pressure. Not emotional pressure, structural pressure. The kind created when two people hold firm positions and allow friction to exist without rushing to resolve it. Instead, every edge was rounded off. If something felt uncomfortable, it was addressed immediately. If distance appeared, it was explained. If energy shifted, it was managed. Nothing lingered. Nothing stayed unresolved long enough to create pull. Attraction doesn't grow in resolution. It grows in unresolved space. Space where curiosity has to move, where desire has to reach, where tension hasn't been neutralized yet. When everything is processed too quickly, attraction has nothing to do. Your partner didn't feel unsafe. They felt unneeded. Not important, unneeded. Because the relationship no longer required attraction to carry momentum. Communication did that. Compatibility did that. Routine did that. Attraction thrives when it has a role. When comfort replaces that role, attraction steps back. Not in protest, in efficiency. This is why healthy relationships often end without anger or blame. Nothing collapsed, nothing failed. The system simply stopped asking attraction to stay active. And when attraction is no longer needed, it doesn't argue. It fades quietly inside a relationship that looks fine right up until it ends.
When nothing was wrong, you assumed everything was right. No conflict meant alignment. No tension meant trust. No discomfort meant maturity. That's what you told yourself. Because problems are visible, their absence feels like proof. But security isn't created by removing pressure. It's created by surviving it without losing position. In your relationship, pressure didn't disappear because both of you were grounded. It disappeared because it was neutralized the moment it appeared. Every potential disagreement was softened. Every emotional spike was managed. Every moment of uncertainty was clarified. That felt responsible. It felt like building something stable. But stability built by constant resolution comes at a cost. It removes the need for curiosity. Your partner didn't need to wonder how you would respond. They didn't need to lean in to feel you. They didn't need to stay alert. Everything was accessible, predictable, secure in the wrong way. Security that comes from certainty of outcome doesn't create depth, it creates flatness. Before, there were moments where your partner felt pulled toward you because something wasn't fully resolved yet. A pause, a silence, a delay. Those moments create charge. When you removed them in the name of health, you removed the current that attraction runs on. Your partner didn't think, "This is boring." They thought nothing at all, because nothing was demanding attention anymore. Attraction doesn't need chaos, but it needs friction. Not arguments, not instability, just the feeling that something real is still forming. When everything is already decided, already explained, already settled, attraction doesn't break. It finishes, quietly, without conflict, inside a relationship where nothing was wrong. This is the part most people don't want to hear. Attraction is not designed to live inside a perfectly managed system. It isn't anti-stability, but it is anti-automation. Once a relationship starts running smoothly without resistance, attraction loses its function. In your relationship, everything worked. Roles were clear. Communication was consistent. Expectations were aligned. Nothing needed to be negotiated twice. That efficiency felt like progress. But attraction doesn't thrive on efficiency. It thrives on orientation. Orientation requires something unresolved, something that hasn't fully settled, something that still needs attention. When the system runs too cleanly, there is no orientation left. Your partner didn't feel tension about where they stood with you. They didn't feel uncertainty about how you would respond. They didn't feel pressure to move toward you. Not because you were distant, because you were available in advance. The relationship anticipated every need before attraction had to engage. That anticipation removed demand, and demand is what keeps attraction active. This is why attraction often fades in relationships that do everything right. No drama, no toxicity, no dysfunction, just smooth days and resolved conversations. Attraction doesn't argue with that. It steps aside, because the relationship no longer asks it to create momentum. Compatibility takes over. Routine takes over. Logistics take over. Those keep relationships functioning. They do not keep them alive. Your partner didn't lose respect for you. They didn't feel unsafe. They didn't feel dissatisfied. They felt settled. Settled is not a problem, but settled is not magnetic. Attraction is a response to movement, not maintenance. Once the relationship becomes a well-oiled structure, movement slows, and attraction follows movement, downward, not dramatically, not painfully, but steadily. Until one day the relationship ends without a clear reason, not because something went wrong, but because nothing required attraction to stay anymore. The most dangerous part was how quiet it felt. There was no moment where you thought something is going wrong, because nothing was. The relationship didn't feel worse, it felt easier. Conversations flowed, plans were simple, there was no tension to manage. You mistook that ease for progress, because when people think of attraction fading, they imagine distance, coldness, withdrawal. That didn't happen. What happened was subtler. Attraction didn't pull away, it stopped pulling forward. You didn't notice because you weren't losing anything. You were just no longer gaining energy from the dynamic. Desire wasn't blocked, it was no longer required. Your partner didn't feel the need to reach toward you emotionally, not because they felt disconnected, because everything was already within reach. Nothing had to be earned, nothing had to be pursued, nothing had to be felt out. The relationship ran on certainty. Certainty removes anticipation.
Anticipation is where attraction lives. This is why the ending felt confusing. You replayed conversations, trying to find the mistake. There wasn't one. There was only a gradual removal of the unknown. And once the unknown is gone, attraction has no place to move. It doesn't announce this. It doesn't warn you. It just stops creating momentum. By the time you sensed something was missing, the dynamic had already settled into a form where attraction was optional. Not gone, just no longer necessary. And that's the moment where endings begin, without anyone doing anything wrong.
Once attraction is no longer required, the relationship doesn't collapse. It stabilizes. Your partner still shows up. They still care. They still choose you. But they don't lean anymore. Affection becomes consistent, not charged. Intimacy becomes available, not urgent. Connection becomes functional. Nothing feels broken. That's what makes it hard to notice. You are no longer experienced as a source of pull. You are experienced as part of the structure. Reliable, compatible, easy to be with. Those are not insults, but they are not magnetic. Attraction doesn't disappear in this phase. It gets reassigned, from driver to background support. The relationship no longer moves because of desire. It moves because it already knows where it's going. Routine replaces curiosity. Predictability replaces tension. Your partner doesn't feel a reason to move toward you emotionally, not because they don't care, because there is nothing unresolved enough to invite movement. This is why the ending feels calm. No anger, no resentment, no betrayal, just a quiet sense that something essential is no longer present. Your partner may even say they don't know why it feels different. That's because nothing happened. Attraction didn't react to a problem. It adapted to a system that no longer needed it to function. And once attraction adapts to that role, it rarely steps forward again without the structure itself changing. Not a conversation, not reassurance, structure. By the time you sense this shift clearly, the relationship has already become something that can continue without desire leading the way. And relationships like that end quietly, not because something was wrong, but because nothing was.
Nothing was wrong. That's the rule most people never question. They think attraction disappears because of mistakes, because of conflict, because someone failed. But attraction doesn't require failure to leave. It requires irrelevance. When a relationship no longer needs attraction to create movement, attraction steps aside. Not angrily, not dramatically, efficiently. You didn't lose them because you became careless. You lost them because the dynamic became complete. Complete systems don't pull, they maintain. Attraction lives in what is unfinished, what hasn't settled yet, what still requires presence to move forward. Once everything is resolved, explained, aligned, and secure, attraction has nothing left to do. This is why the ending felt confusing. There was no betrayal to point to, no argument to blame, no flaw to fix, just a quiet realization that the relationship no longer felt alive. You didn't fail at love. You built a system that worked without desire. And attraction doesn't fight systems like that. It doesn't protest. It doesn't warn. It leaves silently the moment it's no longer required. Nothing was wrong. That's why it ended.